All right, lastly, we will do simple interest, which I think that you'll actually like a lot because it's not overly complicated. The formula that we need are I equals PRT, A equals 1 plus RT in parentheses times P, and as a side note, A is equal to P plus I. Now what all that means, I is the interest amount. It is not the interest percentage. I is a dollar amount of interest. A is the total amount. P is the principal amount. The way to think of this, P is the amount of money at the beginning of the story. A is the amount of money at the end of the story. R is your interest rate. That's where your percentage goes, is at R. T is time. So Bob borrowed some money at 4.5% simple interest for 3 years. At the end of the loan, he had to pay back $1,362. How much did he borrow? The second you see somebody borrowing money or lending money or investing money at simple interest, I immediately want you to write down IAPRT and then just fill in what you know. So Bob borrowed some money at 4.5% simple interest. I know that would mean that R is equal to 0.045. I take that percentage and I change it to its decimal form. I move the decimal point 2 places to the left. He borrowed it for 3 years. That means 3 goes in for time. At the end of the loan, he had to pay back $1,362. That's the amount of money at the end of the story. How much did he borrow? That's a question about how much money was at the beginning of the story. So I want you to write it down, every number that is mentioned in the story, including a question mark for what you're actually looking for. If you do that, it's going to tell you which of those 2 formulae you need to use. Notice I don't have any information about I, and I don't even have a question about I, so I don't want to use the I formula. I do know something about A, so I'm going to use the formula with the A, and I'll just plug everything in that I know. I put 1362 in place of A. I put 1 plus R times T, replacing R with 0.045 and replacing T with 3. And then I keep P as a P because that's what I'm looking for. To simplify this, I'll start within the parentheses. 0.045 times 3 is 0.135. Adding 1 and 0.135, I get 1.135. Now I want to get P by itself. Divide both sides by 1.135. I get P equals $1,200. So Bob borrowed $1,200. And that's all we need to do. So let's look at some other examples. Susan borrows $460 at 7% simple interest for 1.5 years. How much interest will she have to pay? Immediately list out on the side of your paper I, A, P, R, and T. Now pause this video and see if you can work this on your own. Okay, so Susan borrows $460. That's the amount of money at the beginning of the story. 7% simple interest. R is equal to 0.07. 1.5 years, that's 1.5 for T. Now, I don't know which formula to use. That's the reason I need a question mark. Let's see what question is being asked. How much interest will she have to pay? That's looking for the dollar amount of interest. That puts a question mark by I. Then immediately I know I want my I formula. So I know I have I equals PRT. Plug in everything I know. So I is equal to P, which is 460, times R, which is 0.07, times T, which is 1.5. Multiply them together and I get that I is equal to 48.3. So Susan pays $48.30 in interest. Don't forget your units, they're important. Okay, I borrowed $5,600 for 4 years. I paid that much in interest. What was the simple interest rate? Okay, do this one on your own. Pause the video. Okay, first of all, filling in all the values. I borrowed $5,600. That's the amount of money at the beginning of the story. For 4 years, that's my time. I paid $2,688 in interest. That's my interest amount. That's my dollar amount. What was the simple interest rate? So that's the question I have. So if I look, I have information about I, so I want to use the I formula. I equals PRT, so 2688 equals 5600 times R times 4. Multiplying, so I can simplify, I get 2688 equals 22,400 times R. Divide, so I get R equals 0.12. Is that my answer? Look, I was looking for a percentage, so my interest rate was 12%. This one I had to change because I was looking for a percent. Neither of the others changed because I was only looking for a dollar amount, and dollars don't change, but the percentage will change. Since I was looking for the percent, I had to change my answer. Okay, Stephen invested $50 in a mutual fund. After a certain amount of time, the fund had an average yield of 6.5%, and he had $58.13 in his account. How much time had elapsed? Let's fill in our blanks. Go ahead and pause the video and do it on your own. Okay, he invested $50. That's the amount of money at the beginning of the story. After a certain amount of time, we don't know, he had an average yield of 6.5%. Now, it doesn't say interest, but since the R is the only thing that could possibly be a percentage, we're going to put 0.065 there. He had $58.13 in his account. That's the amount of money at the end of the story, so that's my A. How much time had elapsed? So we've got this formula right here. This one will be a little more involved to solve, but we can do it. So we have 58.13 equals 1 plus 0.065t times 50. Remember our rules for solving an equation. The very first thing I will do is distribute. So I distribute the 50 to 1, and I distribute the 50 to 0.065t, and I have 58.13 equals 50 plus 3.25t, or subtracting 50 from both sides, I have 8.13 equals 3.25t, divide by 3.25, and I get t equals 2.50158, blah, 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 or about 2.5 years. And that is the end of simple interest.